Today we are going to be taking a look at 4 different types of Fredrix Pro Series canvases and hopefully helping you guys decide which is going to be the best for your projects. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Fredrix sent me 4 canvases to test out and do a review on so you guys can get an idea of which type of canvas works best for different types of paintings. One of the things that I want to point out with these Pro Series canvases is that the stretcher bars are so amazing to work with. And I know that may seem a little bit weird to you guys, but there are 2 main problems that I have with stretcher bars that are badly made. One is when they warp. I hate when canvases warp. And yeah, you can re-stretch them, but you're adding to the cost of the canvas if you have to keep re-stretching it over new stretcher bars because the stretcher bars used warped so badly. The second is when the stretcher bar has a hard edge up against where the canvas is going to be pushing on. So when you paint, the paint kind of catches when it hits that inside edge of the stretcher bar. The thing with these Pro Series canvases, the lip that these stretcher bars have, let's see if I can get it to where you can kind of see. There's a lip that lifts the canvas slightly up so it's not resting directly on the bar. The lip on the Pro Series canvas is up so much higher than it is on a lot of other canvases that you're gonna see. And then just to top that off, the inside edge here is rounded quite a bit. So when you're adding pressure to the canvas, at no point is your brush pushing the canvas up against the stretcher bar. So you get a nice smooth surface on the whole canvas. You don't end up with a bar of an inch or 2 around that edge where you can see where the paint in the canvas kept pushing on that bar. So the first in the set that they gave me was this green labeled one. It is their Belgian Linen. Now I'm not gonna lie, for years when I heard artists talk about using Belgian Linen, I kind of thought it was like a name brand thing. Look at me, I'm so fancy, I work on linen. It's not. Linen is amazing to work on. Just the texture of the canvas, it's super tight weaved, so it's really easy to get that really fine detail that I personally like so much in my work. So linen canvases are a really nice surface to work on. This one with a green label is suitable for oils or acrylics. The next one that they sent me is their gray label. It is the oil primed linen, and this one, because it's oil primed, it is only suitable for oil paints. And the main difference I find between the Belgian linen and the oil primed linen, I usually will buy the regular Belgian linen just because I work so often with acrylics as my underpainting, and I can do that on that canvas. However, whenever I decide to do straight oil paint, I prefer the oil primed linen because the paint just glides across that surface. You can get such beautiful fine detail, great smooth blending. It is such a nice surface to work on. So there is a difference there, but both of these canvases are 2 of my absolute favorites to work on. The next 2 canvases have quite a bit more tooth, so they're not my go-to canvases, but they are more suitable for certain types of painting. First is this orange labeled one. This is the 12-ounce Dixie. It is a 100% cotton Dixie canvas. This one is great for oils or acrylics, and because it does have much more tooth, it is harder to get some of that fine detail that I like from the linen canvases. But that extra tooth is great if you're working with a palette knife or trying to get extra texture on your work because the paint has so much more to grip to. So that style of painting is much more suitable to this heavier weight cotton canvas. Taking it up another step is the 20-ounce Ultimate. This is another cotton canvas. It is really heavy weight and has a lot more tooth than even the 12-ounce that I just talked about. This one is going to be most suitable for those who are painting things really heavy with a palette knife or just globbing that paint on there so that the canvas ends up having so much weight. This canvas being as heavy as it is, it's not going to sag like another lighter weight canvas would to that weight. So not only does it have all that extra tooth, so that paint that you're putting on so heavily with the texture medium, or if you're even just using the palette knife with heavy globs of oil paint, it'll be able to stick very well to this canvas. And again, because it's so heavyweight, you are not going to have it sag. So if you know that you're adding tons of texture to your canvas that is going to make it weigh a whole lot, this is a great canvas to go with. Now I'm going to show you how all of this actually applies in practice. I have taken this duck and separated it onto 4 canvases. I know I've only got 3 sitting here. The 4th didn't want to sit on the easel, but I painted the same thing on all 4 canvases and I separated it into 4 squares. Each square is painted in a different style so that you can get a better idea of exactly how that's going to look on each different canvas. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. To start off, for all of these canvases, I just did a thin coat of paint to block in my general colors and shapes so that I wasn't fighting against the white of the canvas. Now, being that I was just blocking in the colors here, I thinned my paint out quite a bit with my mixing medium, which is liquid. I'm using Winsor & Newton paints here. And because this is almost the equivalent of a glaze, it went on a lot smoother on the canvases that had less tooth, which would be the Belgian linen and the oil-primed linen. The Dixie and the Ultimate, those ones have so much tooth that when you're painting in thin layers, it catches in the texture of that canvas. So it is definitely not the ideal canvas to use if you are going to be doing a lot of glazing for the techniques you want in your painting. Now I've added on the Belgian linen and the oil primed linen. I've got a little bit thicker paint as I start blocking in or refining the detail on the realism section. Right away, it was just really obvious that I was going to get better results and smoother blending on the linen canvases. I will say, though, that given how heavyweight the Dixie canvas was, I expected to have more trouble than I actually did in getting the blending smooth. It wasn't, obviously it wasn't anywhere near as smooth or as detailed as I was able to get with the two linen canvases, but it wasn't terrible either. So if you were mixing mediums, or styles I should say, like if you were doing a Bob Ross painting, where you're using the palette knife to get your mountains and then coming back through and doing brushwork for a lot of the areas, that Dixie would be a suitable canvas for this. The linen would also work for that. But I do have to say, as much as I expected to say, nope, can't get any detail on the Dixie or the Ultimate, the Dixie wasn't that bad. And when I say that bad, I'm not saying it's a bad canvas. I'm just saying it's not the best choice for fine detail. Now, I did not put nearly as much detail as I could have on the Belgian linen canvases. I felt really unlimited there. I could have worked for hours and hours and hours adding more detail on those. But this gives you a general idea of the difference in effect there. The two linen canvases are very, very similar. I like working in oil. I do prefer the oil primed linen because the paint just glides on. It is so smooth. But both of those canvases you can get tons of detail on. The Dixie, a little bit less detail, and then the Ultimate, I was able to get the least amount of detail and smooth blending with. The next section that I painted was using heavier brushstrokes, where I was going for a more painterly look here. Now, the Belgian linen and the oil primed, again, were my favorite because I was able to get a smoother look without having the dry brush look with the brushes. I personally do not like the dry brush look where you can see the little dots of the previous color underneath showing through. That is a personal preference. If you like that, the Dixie and the Ultimate definitely gave me more of that. But the oil primed and the Belgian linen, just beautiful brush strokes, the way that they blended from one area to another. I was really, really happy with the results on those. And again, the Dixie performed better than I expected it to. So it was able to handle this style. It's not quite as smooth, but it's also not as rough as I expected either. And then, of course, the Ultimate I had the roughest look with. And as we look closer at these, you can see that the two linen canvases have the smoothest look, whereas the Dixie starts getting a bit rougher, and the Ultimate is the harshest of the bunch as far as those brush strokes go. But really, it's not that one's better than another. It depends on the look that you're going for. I personally prefer the look that I got with the linen canvases. But if you want a really harsh, rough look, then you may like these canvases that have the heavier tooth for this style. This next section was somewhere in between the two previous sections, where I was thinning the paint out quite a bit so that I could get the smooth blending and even coverage. It wasn't quite as thick as it was on the more painterly style. I did not expect this to go well on the Ultimate canvas because I wanted these heavier lines outlining everything, and I thought that I was going to be fighting the dry brush look quite a bit. And here it wasn't too bad as long as I used a lot of mixing medium in with my paint so that the paint flowed smoothly. So the point there is that it is possible to get this look on the Ultimate and the Dixie canvas, but it was definitely easier to get the look I was going for on the two linen canvases where it blended smoothly and I wasn't fighting that dry brush type look. If I was trying to use a liner brush and get thin, skinny lines for those black lines, that may have been a problem on the two canvases with the heavier tooth, but here I'm using a larger round brush and it did handle it quite nicely on all 4 canvases. The big difference here was just figuring out where I needed to adjust how much paint versus how much liquid or mixing medium that I had on my brush in order to make each canvas work. But for something like this, even given that the Ultimate and the Dixie can handle it, I think the finished result, just because of that the tooth showing in the canvas, I think it looks better on the Belgian Linen because you're not having the light hit and bounce off of the tooth of the canvas. So for that simple reason alone, I would still recommend on this style sticking with the smoother canvases. Now we will move on to painting with the palette knife, and this is where the Dixie and the Ultimate canvases really shine. They have so much tooth on those canvases that the paint has so much more to grip to. With the Belgian Linen and the oil primed linen, it worked okay, but it felt a little bit more slippery, and so it was easier to make mud with the palette knife than it was on the Ultimate and the Dixie, and mud is not the look that I was going for here. I definitely felt like I had more control using the Dixie and the Ultimate canvas. Now, deciding whether or not you want to use the Dixie or the Ultimate on this, it boils down to how much weight you're going to be adding to the canvas. If you're using a ton of texture medium that tends to build up so heavily, that is going to weigh the canvas down. And the heavier you're going to go, the heavier weight canvas you want to go with. So if it's going to be very, very heavy, go with the Ultimate because it's not going to be as prone to sagging. The Dixie is also quite heavy though, and so it can handle a fair amount of weight. So when looking at the Belgian Linen and the oil primed linen, they look okay with the palette knife. You can certainly use the textured painting on that, but you're going to be more likely to have a little bit of a problem with the canvas sagging if you put too much on there. Here with the palette knife, this really isn't going to be a big problem. So if you were painting like a Bob Ross style or something like that where you're mixing both the palette knife and brushwork, then the Belgian Linen should be able to handle that well. But when you're using techniques that require the canvas to hold a lot of weight, then the Dixie and the Ultimate are definitely going to be your go-to canvases there. And the difference between the two is just how much weight do you need it to hold. The one thing that I liked a bit better about the 12-ounce Dixie canvas versus the 20-ounce Ultimate is I think that it's kind of a fair in-between middle ground canvas. It handled the brush strokes fairly well, not as good as the linen, but still decent. It didn't have too much tooth, but it was still heavyweight enough that working with a palette knife, it stuck to it really well, and I'm not really worried about that canvas sagging because it is such a heavyweight canvas. So it's kind of a nice middle ground canvas to go with. But again, if you're going to go super heavy with the texture medium, the Ultimate is a great, great canvas to choose. Now just summing this up, the Belgian Linen and the oil primed linen I feel are absolutely amazing to work with if you're doing a lot of glazing, a lot of layering, a lot of detailing, that sort of thing. When you're going for a more realistic look, or even with a more painterly style where you want really smooth brush strokes but still want your brush strokes to show. When you're painting more heavily, especially with the palette knife, certain mixed media techniques where you're gluing stuff to the canvas or using texture medium, then the Dixie and the Ultimate canvases are going to be better for you, and which one between those two just depends on how much weight you need it to hold, and are you going to be doing a lot of brushwork with it. If you're using a lot of brushwork, I do like the Dixie best between the two. Thanks for watching. If you're supporters over on Patreon, because this video is a little bit different than normal, I don't have these videos for you because they're not my usual teaching videos, but I did take the Snowy Owl colored pencil drawing and put a voiceover tutorial on there for that, so you've got the 2-hour tutorial of the Snowy Owl waiting for you over on Patreon now. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, social media tips for artists each Thursday, and artist vlogs every weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Google+, all of those social media sites. The links are below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, that's still wet. This is suitable for water. Oh, no. The lip on the Pro Series canvas is lipped. That is a lot of words that probably makes no sense.